One of the most challenging aspects of our job is that we are overflowing with good news stories from around the world. How lucky are we? It's hard to believe, but even after a call with partners in countries like Burkina Faso that is plagued with civil conflict, or Sri Lanka that is enduring a catastrophic economic crisis, we are left smiling and full of hope. To share some of this infectious positivity with the world, we created the Good News Podcast, a platform where our local leaders get to share what they are working on to improve some of the issues unique to their communities. So, welcome, and thanks for joining us. In today's episode, I speak with Douglas Mwangi, the founder of Oasis Mathare in Nairobi, Kenya. Douglas and his team are providing education to boys and girls in Mathare Slum, with an emphasis on STEM and positive mentorships. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Oasis Mathare is also contributing to lowering carbon emissions. Now, you may be wondering, how does educating girls in Kenya relate to climate change? Well, if you caught our first episode called Record-Breaking Heat Waves and Supercharged Storms, you'll remember we discussed how educating girls is one of the top 10 ways to lower carbon emissions, as noted in the book Drawdown, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. If you need a refresher on how these dots connect, I highly recommend going back to listen to our first episode, where we outline the stats on how to connect educating girls and reversing global warming. But today we're going to begin our journey of sharing stories of local organizations around the world that are taking these stats and putting them into action. So let's get started and dive into the inspiring story of Oasis Mathare and their mission to transform their community and our planet. Welcome, Douglas. Thank you so much for being our very first guest. If it's okay with you, we're going to dive right into getting to know you a bit better and hear about Oasis. I know that I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand, and you're in Nairobi, Kenya. So it's morning for you, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's actually like 7:45 a.m. in the morning.
Well, thanks for joining to a nice early morning call. How do you start your morning? Do you start your morning with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea?
Mostly, I normally start my morning with 1 liter of water. And then later on, after 2 hours, 3 hours, I take my tea. But sometimes I take 2 glasses of water, sometimes it's 3, and sometimes it's 1 liter.
That's amazing. That's far healthier than I am, where I kind of stumble out and go straight to a cup of coffee. I think it's very impressive you wait 2 or 3 hours to have your first hot drink in the morning. What's a typical breakfast that you would have?
It all depends. I might go for either tea or coffee, and then I'll have some beans or bread. Sometimes I'm more healthy. I take a more organic food such as arrowroot. If I have leftover for evening, like dinner, I might as well take that. But it all depends.
I love hearing other people's morning routines. It kind of sets the scene for how you kick your day off. So maybe we can all be inspired to start our day with a liter of water. Douglas, can you tell myself and the listeners a bit about yourself? So kind of a bit about you personally and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born and brought up in Mathare Slum. Mathare Slum is one of the biggest informal settlements in Kenya. It's actually the second biggest. We are located literally like 5 kilometers away from the city center, that is the city center of Nairobi. Mathare Slum, just like any informal settlements in the world, there are no spaces where kids can play. Most houses are built with no running water, electricity. Sometimes you might be lucky if a family of 30 share one bathroom, but mostly it's an average of 40 families and above sharing one bathroom. So you can kind of see like how the informal settlement looks like. We live in a really small house that we shared all of us. And life was very interesting because I spent better part of my school days at home as a result of my mother could not afford to pay my school fees. And there's this one particular moment that I normally remember. I spent 3 months at home. That is an entire school calendar, like one term, because my parents could not afford to buy me textbook. And that book costed actually $1. That's how like life was after finishing primary school. That was in primary school. And then after finishing primary school, so if my mother could not afford a book worth like $1, so you can imagine, school fees for high school. So I learned how to shave. I secured an employment in a local barber shop, worked there for 2 years, was able to raise enough to pay part of my high school fee, did that, but still experienced the same challenges. School fees, no place I could go and learn, access to learning materials. But yeah, I finished and got fascinated with technology. And I can say that technology like literally changed my life. And that's why I'm a biggest advocate of technology because we believe in technology. I believe that technology does not have a boundary. As long as you have an access to computer, access internet, you have that passion, the opportunities are limitless.
What an inspiring story. As you were saying that, I was thinking that we've been working together for a couple of years and already I've learned so much about you. So thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us a bit about what inspired you to start Oasis and how old were you to found such an impactful organization?
Yeah, thanks for that. So what literally inspired me to start Oasis Mathare, like, while growing up in Mathare Slum, I didn't have an access to a safe space where I can go and learn because I spent better part of my school days at home. And that is actually the story of even at the moment, when walking around Mathare Slum, you'll find kids who are not in school. At the moment, school in Mathare Slum, like primary school, it's free, but they'll be asked for them to come with books, learning materials, to buy desk, maybe to contribute for lunch. But
Mm.
still, most of these families, they don't have, like, just like my story. By then, when I spent like 3 months at home, the school were not asking for me school fees. They were asking for a book. And I spent like an entire time at home. So it's still the same story at the moment. I was lucky to be inspired to go back to school, shave and was able to take myself back to school. But majority, they don't end up like finishing formal education. So you end up having youth, young men and women who are 18 years, 20 years, 30 years. They did not finish formal education, which means that they didn't go to uni or they don't have any skill to help them earn a livelihood. And those who those who finish formal education, they didn't have really, really good grades to help them, for them to access higher education. So you have a situation where you have a very huge population of young men and women who do not have skill to help them earn a livelihood. And that's what really, really inspired me. Like, I still had this at the back of my mind. Like, when I become rich, I think I'm going to open up a big resource center where we'll have kids to come and learn and access learning materials. There's this one particular moment, tracing back to after finishing home education, learned how to code and everything. I secured an employment. After securing employment, I worked with this organization, which actually like really set me up for starting Oasis Mathare. The organization is called Digital Opportunity Trust, like DOT. And DOT deployed me back to my community to train young men and women on very basic digital literacy skills and social entrepreneurship. And while training them, there's one particular young man who opened a business without literally, he didn't have any resources at all. This is a true story. So we were just brainstorming on how can you start up something with what you have. And he had DVDs with videos and series. He also collected some of these DVDs and videos from his friends. And that's how he started like a movie shop. But he literally didn't have any monetary resources, but he had some movies that he used to watch. And he could also borrow some movies from his friend. And that's how he started his business. So I was like, that's pretty interesting. I've been challenging myself like to start a community resource center without resources. I was like, I should do it. And that's how the course started. Like, every Saturday, I open up a center. I borrowed books, laptops, computers from friends and family. And that's how like it started. So we started like once a week. The demand grew twice a week, thrice a week. And here we are, I'm doing it full time. What really inspired me was the challenges that I personally faced. And unfortunately, is the same challenges of young men and women are having even today.
Wow. So when you first started, was gender part of the conversation of making sure that young women were participating kind of in those early days? Were you seeing both young men and women, or how did you ensure to really get young women engaged, given that they have more barriers to accessing education?
So gender was not initially part of the conversation at Oasis Mathare. So it kind of like evolved. Like I mentioned earlier, we started, so it was primarily giving a safe space for kids to come and learn, access learning material in a very, very quiet and safe environment. That's how like really started. But moving forward, we realized that we have young men and we have women who, like single mothers, who did not have a place where they can drop their kids. They can take their kids to school, but they still want to go and hustle. They don't have resources to hire a nanny, but they still want work. And that's how like, we started like, oh, how can we support these single, and most of them, they were teenage mothers, to like support them. How can we support them? So the best possible way was, hey, you can just drop your kids at the library. We used to call it like actually a toy center, because you had some toys where kids can just play. Why can't they just drop them and then they'll go work and then come later on in the evening?
Mm.
But while at it, it was not sustainable for both of us, for the organization, even for themselves, because they're having some free time. Their kids are being well taken care of. They are going to work. I'm like, how can we ensure that we are supporting them have like really sustainable model? And that's how we like, you know what, you can go, but the best possible will be come and access some skills. We continue on how to run a business. We continue on how to use basic computer. We continue on how to access jobs online and that kind of stuff. Initially, we used to do like a very intense course for everyone accessing Oasis Mathare, including even young mothers. So like, you can come learn how to design website. And then there's this one particular lady, her name is Maggie. Margaret, like she wanted to change her life. And that's why we started having this conversation. She really wanted to change her life. And like, I just need my way out of this. And we brainstormed with her and took her a crash course of 3 months. Within 3 months, she was able to secure a job in one of the biggest data center in Kenya. She went ahead to take herself back to school. Now, after her securing employment, she moved away from Mathare. She moved out of Mathare Slum, finished uni. She was promoted to be a data manager in the same organization company. She later on quit her job and started her own company, doing telecenter. So I mean, it was not part of the conversation, but later on, we're like, hey, getting feedback from people like Maggie, like, I have these and these are my passion. What do I do? So what has informed us changing our model is the conversation we've been having with these amazing community participants from Mathare Slum. How can we support them? How can we even support us? How can we make it much better, convenient to them?
Wow. What an incredible story. I remember when we first learned about Oasis was a few years ago and my kids were still really small. And when I saw that you had the childcare center, it really struck a chord with me. And I know a lot of listeners who have small kids at home know that just how important it is to have a safe space for small kids where women can pursue their dreams.
It is. And like I mentioned earlier, you see, Mathare Slum does not literally have a space where kids can play. And play is very much important for kids' growth. So this space, they can come and play with toys. And over the years, so we used to have like really just some very basic toys, but we have like really adapted to how can we use technology, how can they learn science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics, and design at their stage. So they're doing some coding, they're doing some Lego robotics and that kind of stuff, which is actually, it's mind blowing. They're developing their critical thinking skills at an early age, collaboration, leadership. You can see them so it's really amazing on how STEM is transforming their lives. Like they can just be kids, they can play, and then we direct this play into we call it like learning through play. So they are playing, but they are learning.
Yeah, that's incredible. How are the young women doing in school? Are they able to complete it?
They're doing amazing. Initially, things are changing now, but initially, we used to have sort of like the highest intake will be 40% of women joining our program, and then 60% or majority being men, always. But what happened is that if we have 20% of women enrolling, we will have the same percentage graduating. And then the other way, the men or boys, they will fall. Like if they were 70%, their completion rate will be like 50% of the 70%. But now we have more women enrolling into our program and less men. And it's the same story. The last cohort we had in a number, there were 20 participants, 5 were men, 15 were female. And 14 of the female successfully graduated.
Wow.
So there is this dedication that we get from women. It's very, very interesting on how it is a drive. We have seen that drive when they see this and they go, "How this can actually like transform my life," and they go for it. They actually give it all in, and they're doing really, really amazing. So we have like automated fun. So there's this lady called Kasuve. So like, this class is really hard during the day. Her class was during the like after 2 p.m. Like, yeah, this class is very hard. And I was like, yo, what do you want us to do? Like, yeah, we're just thinking of having like an automated fun where when it's hot, the fan comes on. When it's cold, like the fan goes off. Like, yeah, go for it. So we facilitated the process by buying the equipment, and they did the entire work. And that was led by that lady, Kasuve. She actually like did it. It was amazing, really amazing. Most of the innovation in our center have been done, if not thought by a female, it was done by a female. It's really incredible. It's very incredible. Even the switch itself, we have a switch, and that switch, so kids used to come in because most of them, they don't have maybe electricity in their place, and they see switch at the center. So they'll come in and turn it off, turn it off. So in 2 weeks, we'll have to replace the switch again.
Yeah.
Kids, they normally come in and break this switch. How can we want to set up like a finger activated light. Yeah, so they like attach sensor kind of switch, and we really have an incredible force. We can see the enthusiasm coming from female in this sort of male-dominated field. Women think holistically. Even my team, I'm being challenged by my team. Ladies think the way you guys like process information and think about everyone is amazing. It's really, really phenomenal.
Oh my gosh, Douglas, I'm loving watching that you're kind of like speechless in how to even describe the enthusiasm and brilliance of the women that you're working with. Gosh, it just really makes me want to come and visit and see all of these local tech innovations that the women are coming up with. It sounds pretty cool.
You'll be amazed. Thanks.
So along with all of these positive stories, what are the things that are hard to get funding for? What are some of your funding challenges?
That's a really good question, because when we started Oasis Mathare, so the model, again, let me give you a concept. So the model of Mathare is, one, we give young women and men opportunity to gain some skills. And then after they've gained these skills, we pick some of them to work with us so that they can sharpen their skills in readiness for them to access greener pasture or to opportunities outside. So we had this lady called Swaiba. She came, she was one of our participants, went through our program. She became part of our volunteer. She became a full-time staff, and she was poached. That's really, really good. But it left us in a very vulnerable position. Like, here, we have to go back and look for another Swaiba, work with her. So it's an entire process. So one of the challenges that we have been accessing is like, we have donors who they want to fund program, and that's amazing. We are here to deliver programming. Like, let's ensure that these vulnerable women are accessing this program. But also on the other end is that for us to chop up, for us to be like at the best, for us to ensure that these women are accessing quality programming, we need to have staff who are well-trained, well-remunerated. Yeah. We have systems that are working, and that is not a conversation donors want to hear. And for small grassroots organizations such as Oasis Mathare, we have an amazing program, but the people who are running the program, we do not have skills, resources to ensure that the program is running. So the biggest challenge for us and even other small grassroots organizations is having that flexibility. You get resources. How can you use the resources to direct it to the way it fits the organization? And the partnership that we have with Move 92, it's amazing because, the funding that we get it's really amazing because most donors, they wouldn't like the last funding, because the computers that we had before, they were really, really good, but we can do better. And the last funding that we got from you guys, we were able to redirect it to the most needed, ensure that we have good computers. And by the way, the whole course, instead of taking 1 year, because the software engineering class is taking less time because the computers are better, they're efficient. I'll give you another story. So last year we had a volunteer who came very early in the year. That was in January. She came and she worked with us at the ECD center for 2 months. It was 8 weeks. She was a Taiwanese, and then she later on came to volunteer with us in November. And she was giving us feedback. And there's this lady called Mwangi, just really because she interacted with these kids at an early stage. And then she went and then came back and interacted with the same kids. And she's like, oh, these kids have like really, really improved. Like, their literacy. We didn't notice that. We didn't because we did not document it. That we don't have a process to document it. And it's a conversation that we had with you with Move 92. That was last year at one, like documenting our journey, documenting our success. So we bought some really good tools to help us document, but also now we know how to document. Like, it's not about documenting the big impacts. It's documenting like the small and noticeable impact. So again, these are not the conversation that you can have with donors. They want, hey, let's have like this year, last year you did 100, this year do 200. It's good, but there are other bits that helps scaling from 100 to 200. Yeah. There's some lesson that you need to learn with the 50. So these are the kind of like the support that most grassroots organizations need.
So what I hear you saying is kind of from the donor side, and we hear this a lot in our role as philanthropy advisors. We hear a lot, can this organization scale up? If they're making a difference in 50 lives, how can they make a difference in 100 lives? And you hear that as well. But then the tricky part comes in of getting funding to do this scaling up in a responsible and efficient way, because so much of the funding goes to programs. And so it's putting the message out there that, well, if you want to keep asking about scaling up, fund the opportunity to stop, pause, reflect, and put a plan together to scale up.
Yes, very true.
So we know that your next grant with Move 92 will be doing this. And so we're really looking forward to following you on the journey of what that looks like. And it would be cool to set the example, like you said, of how important that is for grassroots organizations of your size. To scale up responsibly, you need to take the time to do it strategically. And I have to say, Douglas, you were the one that brought that to our attention. We hear it all of the time from the donors we work with about scaling up or how can they double their numbers. But it was when you said to us how difficult it is to get the funding to do that work that it really clicked of what a need it is to talk about that it's not just about scaling up, it's about scaling up responsibly. So thank you for that, because you said it so perfectly to our team, and it really, it made us stop and think and reflect of, wow, this is a really important conversation to be sharing with the donors that we work with.
And thanks for Move 92 for providing that safe environment to be vulnerable and even to like, hey, can we try this? Okay. You gave us that assistance to like express ourselves, just to actually have this conversation.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I think that touches down really well with the notion of trust-based philanthropy that we are really passionate about. And sometimes people can doubt trust-based philanthropy, that you're just kind of giving money, no strings attached, and then not following up to see how it goes. But it's really just the opposite, because what it means is that we're having these open, honest conversations to say, well, what do you need? If you get this funding, what are the needs from your perspective, rather than us saying, how do you get more and do more and increase numbers? Because it's never just about the numbers.
Very true.
And
Very true.
It's so much fun for us because, like I said, you brought this conversation to our table, and it's really transformed the way that our team thinks. So it's this reciprocal relationship that we're constantly really learning from each other. And that's where the trust comes in.
Thanks.
So I was going to ask you to tell a specific story, but you have so perfectly woven them in to this conversation already with your individual stories of hearing. But is there another story that you want to tell us? An inspiring success story from Oasis?
The thing is, like every time when we do like a reflection on how like we have done our programming, what normally like drives us is the fact that we have this incredible at Oasis Mathare. Actually, everyone at Oasis Mathare was one of our participants. Yeah, like everyone, like literally, like all of us were they were program participants, and now they are stars. So it's no longer about me now. It's no longer about the founder. So it's all about them because they have gone through the program. They have transformed their lives. There are those who have gone ahead and accessed really amazing big jobs. They're incredibly doing well. Recently, I was making a joke. There's one of our participants who, for me to have a chat with them, is that I need to have access to their PA, personal assistant.
Yeah.
It has reached to that point where they are doing really, really well. And we are happy. We are happy for that. And so the next part is, how can we solidify this? How can we ensure that we are accessing now jobs by ourselves, like tech jobs, although we have been accessing that, like a sort of like a consultancy, like getting some tech consultancy job. And then this job is done in collaboration with staff and the student themselves so that they can continue building their portfolio. They can work on a real-time project. There are multiple different thoughts and success stories that we have. That aspect of someone came in and they now think differently. What we have noticed is we have students coming in. So we have had community participant or a woman or a kid who they have never experienced outside Mathare Slum. Not that they have never been outside Mathare Slum, but there are some spaces they have never accessed. And so we are collaborating locally with organizations such as Unilever, just local big tech organization to take our students and participants. We don't call them students, we call them community participants because you also learn from them. So we have been taking them to these spaces. And what normally happens after taking them to these spaces is that they start now thinking differently. Life can be like this now. Now they have another goal to look up to. It's not, and this is like totally true because while I was working at the barber shop, I remember my boss asked me, what do you want in life? I was like, if I have a room, just a small room because my boss was my biggest model. He was my model because he had a 2-bedroom house made of shack. He had a TV, a small TV, size of a laptop, and a very big radio. So I was like, if I have that TV and my house has a carpet and I have a VCR to play movies, that's everything. That's all I wanted because that's all I can see from him being my boss. He's my inspiration, you see? But now, like me going outside Mathare Slum, us taking our community participant outside Mathare Slum, they can see, so it's no longer having this small TV and having a house that has a PVC carpet and having a VCR that you can play movie. There's other things that you can dream of. And that inspires them to work hard. That motivates them to come early in the morning to do, their homework. That motivates them to come up with a very innovative solution to the problem they are going through. So that is like the success that we see. It might not be that big, but the seed that we plant for them to start thinking differently is what like we look forward to.
Mm, so well said. Really, really, really well said. What question do you want to be asked that people never ask you?
That's a really good question. So I think the question is the talk of it is how generally how the organization is doing besides like the program, how many numbers. Besides that, like now, how is your staff doing? How you doing? Even like the well-being, because you can have a staff who they're doing amazing work, but all the time we see them as staff, we don't see them as human, and they have this struggle they are going through, and because they have to put up this face, you'll never know what's happening with them. The other question is, how are you doing, Douglas? Like the well-being of the people delivering the program, because as much as we are doing this work, we also need to also take care of ourselves in terms of learning new things, advancing our skill sets, taking some time off to breathe, just to do nothing. Thanks for asking that question, because I've even had to do a self-reflection. And what is it that I want to hear from the people, my team member?
Well, can I ask you the question now? How are you doing? And how is your team?
Yeah.
Do you take time for yourself, Douglas? I know because you're the founder and you're still so deeply involved in the work, I would imagine that you work a lot.
Yesterday, we had this conversation because I'm in a work trip. I'm like, I was just on the phone all the time. I was like, Douglas, you always work 24/7. I'm like, no, I don't work 24/7. I normally have like Saturdays and Sundays. Oh, even Saturdays. Sundays, like, sometimes I can, you can pop in and check some emails and everything. As I found, like, yes, I to answer your question and to contradict myself, I try to take sometimes off. I do, yes. I like now, like, because last time I've been away for 2 weeks and I was also away for another 2 months. And things were doing well while I was away. And that means that we have a team that is able to step up and take more responsibilities. But yes, to answer your question, we are doing well. We are striving to do well. The funding that we'll be receiving next from Move 92 is just to completely pause and see how are we doing as an organization, as staff, as individual. How are people seeing us? Take that pause and reflect. So that we can make the next move.
That's great. It'll be exciting to watch you pause. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to say, are you pausing? Because I know it's hard to do when you're so used to doing all the doing, but we'll hold you to that.
Thanks.
Well, Douglas, I want to say, at Move 92, we meet people all of the time that say they want to figure out how to make the world a better place. And sometimes people don't know how to do that or how to feel connected. Hearing your story today, it just really solidifies that directly supporting local leaders like yourself is the way to make the world a better place. Thank you for sharing all of your stories. We can get pretty overwhelmed with news stories, kind of what's happening around the world today, and talk about pausing. I think it's pretty great to pause and hear about the work that you're doing, not only for girls and young women, but for your community as a whole. So thank you for taking the time today. And I want to say that to anyone that's listening, if you want to learn more about Oasis or explore how to get a grant directly to Douglas and Oasis, get in touch with our team at move92.org and we can help you do that. Douglas, thank you again. And I'm lucky enough that I know that I'll be talking with you throughout the year to see how your pausing is going. And I really look forward to that. But just truly, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Dave, for having me and offering this opportunity to share what we do. And also, the questions were amazing. They made me stop and think through. So thanks for having us and supporting us.